Good morning and welcome to Independent Women's Forum National Press Call on a new common sense approach to increasing access to paid leave. Today's conference is being recorded. To open the discussion, it's IWF President Carrie Lukas. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you so much for joining me today. IWF was proud to publish the first paper by Kristen Shapiro outlining how we can reform and improve Social Security to increase access to paid leave. We're gratified this idea has gotten so much attention. And to start this call, I'd like to welcome Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa to make a statement.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Carrie and Kristen with the Independent Women's Forum for holding this call today to discuss the issue of paid leave, an issue that's important to millions of mothers, fathers, and families across the country. And it is long overdue that we get serious about a path forward. Also, I'd like to thank my colleague, Senator Mike Lee, for his great leadership on this topic as well. As I'm sure many of you on today's call can attest, being a working parent is no easy task. Throughout my career, I've worked with many new parents who struggled to afford daycare, but also needed to continue working. As a nation, we can do better for our families. President Trump highlighted paid leave during his State of the Union address, and it's time for Congress to get to work on this issue that has a major impact on people's everyday lives. In the 115th Congress, members in both the House and Senate and from both sides of the aisle have introduced paid leave legislation, recognizing that moms and dads across the country are trying to figure out how to ensure their babies are well cared for and nurtured in those precious first few weeks of life. As a conservative, there are a few things that I look for when studying options for paid leave legislation. First, employers should not be loaded with one-size-fits-all mandates. Second, we should steer away from expanding the footprint of the federal government. And third, we should not increase taxes. As a mother and a grandmother, I recognize the need for our policies to reflect the evolving needs of our workforce and to reduce barriers that pose challenges to parents balancing families and their work. That's why I'm encouraged to learn more about a path forward that would create a voluntary, budget-neutral paid leave program rather than impose a new entitlement or mandate. This idea is accessible, it's creative, and straightforward, and can serve as a good launch pad for discussions that I will have with my colleagues as we set out soliciting input from various stakeholders and constituents, and hopefully considering this legislation in Congress. I look forward to working on this important issue of paid leave. I appreciate the wonderful support that we've gotten so far. Again, Carrie and Kristen, thanks for all that you've been able to contribute to this important topic. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Senator. I'd now like to welcome Senator Mike Lee from Utah to make a statement.
Thank you, Carrie, for that kind of introduction, and thanks, Kristen, for all the work you've done on this issue. And thank you to the Independent Women's Forum for making this call happen in the first place. So much of my work here in the Senate has focused on how we, as conservatives, can reform the federal government so that it works for working families and not against them. This is why I worked so hard with Senator Rubio and with Ivanka Trump last year to make sure that the expanded child tax credit was included in the tax reform package. And it's also why I'm so intrigued with Ms. Shapiro's novel approach to the family leave issue. Translating Ms. Shapiro's idea into a workable legislative product that adheres to conservative principles while simultaneously allowing government to work better for working families would be a huge win for the American people. Now, we started digging into this issue a few weeks ago with Ms. Shapiro and Andrew Biggs and Senator Rubio and a few other friends, both on Capitol Hill and off the Hill. As you might imagine, turning good ideas into good legislation takes time. Getting this right means asking the right questions and then figuring out how to answer them. Some of the questions we're working through right now include some of the following. First, how can we make sure that this proposal won't just hasten the Social Security Trust Fund's 2034 insolvency date? And second, how can benefits be structured so that the benefits are delivered when families need it? Third, we're confronting the question of how should this proposal interact with existing family leave law, and how should it deal with small and large employers alike? Now, we're optimistic about our ability to answer each of these questions, and part of the reason for that optimism is the help of and the interest expressed by everyone on this call. So I'm really excited to be investigating this proposal, and I want to thank Ms. Shapiro and the Independent Women's Forum for offering this fresh solution.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Senator. I'd like to welcome Caleb Orr, who handles economic policy for Senator Marco Rubio, to make a statement on Senator Rubio's behalf.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you for hosting this call. Senator Rubio sends his regards. He had to be on an unexpected flight. My name is Caleb Orr, Legislative Assistant to Senator Rubio. I'll be reading a statement from him. Conservatives are pro-family. The modern economy has placed new and unique burdens on working moms and dads that make it harder to start and raise a family, and we should address that. I am working to craft a plan that works for working families. As the Independent Women's Forum and Kristen Shapiro have outlined, a paid parental leave program that increases family flexibility in a fiscally responsible way would not only represent conservatism meeting the challenges of the 21st century, it would remain true to Social Security's fundamental principle of providing assistance to dependents in our care. Expanding the child tax credit was step one. With the President's support, I look forward to continuing our efforts for working American families by passing paid family leave. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Before we take questions, here's a little background on how we got to this moment in the debate. Independent Women's Forum has long studied and written about the paid leave issue because we recognize that it is a critical issue for many American families. We've opposed the most common policy proposals advanced to increase access to paid leave because they have significant downsides, particularly for women. A mandate on employers requiring that they must provide paid leave to all workers would raise employment costs and reduce the number of jobs available, particularly for women. A new paid leave entitlement program would require a new payroll tax, taking money out of the pocket of all workers. It would also discourage true workplace flexibility and potentially negatively impact the millions of workers who are satisfied with their compensation arrangements. IWF has consistently brought together leading policy analysts to identify better ways to approach this issue. Last month, IWF published a paper by Kristen Shapiro outlining her unique proposal to reform the Social Security program to give workers the option of accessing accessing parental leave benefits after the birth or adoption of a child in exchange for delaying their retirement benefits to offset those costs. We see the benefits of this approach as numerous. It would provide needed support for everyone who lacks paid leave, but without affecting all workers who are satisfied with their current arrangements. It would be voluntary, encourage a sense of personal responsibility, and would not increase the federal government's deficit or outstanding liabilities. We believe that this proposal would be a step in the right direction, making our safety net stronger and more efficient without needlessly growing government. And we believe this can attract bipartisan support. We've welcomed and appreciated the White House's leadership in making this issue of paid leave a priority. And I encourage everyone to visit IWF.org for more information and to read that paper written by Kristen Shapiro. And I now welcome your questions.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask a question, you may do so by pressing *1 on your telephone keypad. If you're using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. We ask that you please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. Once again, that's *1 to signal. We'll go first to Ian Colgren with Politico.
Hi there. Thanks for having this call. I wanted to ask this question of Senator Lee, if he is still on the phone. How do you make sure that because we've got this aging population, that the younger population is supporting with Social Security, that the system would, in fact, be able to handle younger people withdrawing some of their contributions early to pay for paid leave?
Senator Lee, this is Con Carroll with Senator Mike Lee's office. He did have a 910, so we had to exit, but that is definitely one of the questions that our staff is working through as we try to turn this idea into legislation.
Thanks, Con.
And once again, that's star 1 to signal. We'll go next to Nate Madden with CRTV.
That pretty much addressed my question. But the other one I have is there, for Con mainly, is there any concern about, as this turns into legislation and as it'll eventually go through the legislation sausage making in the Senate and the House, there'll be any mission creep to expand this past the budget neutral point?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the concerns. We are trying to make it as limited and sticking with our limited government principles as possible. So all the dangers that any type of tinkering with government programs have is definitely something we're paying very close attention to.
And once again, that's star 1 to signal. We'll go next to Rebecca Intrago with Think Progress.
Hi, this is sort of just for anyone to answer, but I was just wondering how you can sort of market this as, how you can sort of market this as delaying retirement as not a cut to Social Security.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is Carrie from IWF, and I'll go ahead and take a crack at that. Well, first of all, it's important to remember this is entirely voluntary. So if anyone who doesn't want to make the trade-off or doesn't think that it is worth it to use the paid leave to take parental leave benefits in exchange for delaying retirement, doesn't have to do so. So I think it's important that's the principle behind it. So anyone who thinks it's a bad trade-off doesn't have to make this trade. But then I think it's also important to remember the magnitude of what we're talking about. As everyone has mentioned, the numbers are still being crunched, and they have to figure. The actuaries are looking into what the pay for would have to be. So if you take 12 weeks of paid parental leave, how many weeks retirement would need to be delayed to compensate for those costs. But if it's going to be around possibly 1 week for 1 week, that's still a pretty modest increase in the retirement age. Obviously, that when Social Security was created, the life expectancy was far lower, making kind of the relative, to retiring at 66 or 67 today is still relatively early in life, and asking people to work for another 12 weeks or giving them the option to work for another 12 weeks at age 67 is unlikely to be a tremendous hardship. But again, people will be free to make that determination on their own.
And once again, it is star 1 to signal for a question or comment at this time, star 1. We'll go next to Tammy Bruce with Independent Women's Voice and Fox News.
Hi there, Carrie, this would be for you or for anyone who might know. You mentioned that, and it does sound like there could be some bipartisan interest. Do we know that at any point at this stage? Have you talked with anyone? Has there been any feedback from any Democratic offices? What do we think on that at this point? Because this doesn't make government bigger, so I would think that it might limit Democrats' interests, but at the same time, it sounds like a great solution. What do you know at this point regarding interest on the other side of the aisle?
Yeah, right now we don't have anyone who is kind of publicly talking about this issue or has kind of jumped on to support this concept. But I know that there has been some inquiries, and I'm very encouraged. Democrats and a lot of left of center public policy organizations, I think see that this could be a compromise, and a lot of people are truly committed to their interest is in making sure that people who lack paid leave but need paid leave have access to it. And this would be, it may not be the dream scenario, their version of the dream scenario, but I think that that a lot of folks may see this as a way to solve the problem and actually get something done, and not, that they don't want to just have this as an issue to kind of make political hay out of but rather to really make progress and in helping people. So I'm encouraged. I think that one of the interesting things to remember is this idea was really just brought forth last month. IWF was the first to publish a paper on this, and that was beginning of January, so literally just a couple weeks ago. So we're really in the very early stages, and I think the fact that we've had 3 Senate offices joining us today and working hard to see if this can be translated into legislation is very encouraging. And again, we have had some inquiries from the other side of the aisle. So I think that for 1 month in, this is showing a lot of potential.
Excellent. Good. Thank you.
And once again, that's *1 to signal. And Carrie, it appears we have no other questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. If you joined the call late, IWF will have a complete transcript and audio MP3. Please contact our press team to receive that information. You can email them at press@iwf.org. And again, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
And once again, that does conclude today's call. We thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.